Most conservatives and Christians still think that Donald Trump is the biggest threat to the global agenda. But what if I told you that he wasn't there to fight it, he was actually there to push it? And what if the technocrats knew that in order to push this brave new world system, they'd have to get someone at the podium that you would trust? The question isn't whether we're moving towards global control. It's really about how they've manipulated people into embracing it. And I believe that this administration is that Trojan horse, and that's what we're going to talk about today in this video, the second part in my mini-series on Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. Welcome to Certainty for Uncertain Times. My name is Lauren, and the entire goal behind this channel is to help you navigate through the chaos, the clown world, and the dumpster fire that we all find ourselves living in these days through the lens of the Bible, but also while connecting those most crucial dots to Bible prophecy, because it is happening in and around you, whether you believe it or not. Now, if you're looking to dive a whole lot deeper into the Bible's prophetic puzzle pieces, then guess what? You are so in the right place, and I'm going to ask that you would like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, and even give this video a share to help me circumvent the tech overlords that are not exactly my favorite people, nor am I theirs. And in today's video, we are picking up on part 2 of my mini-series talking about Aldous Huxley and A Brave New World being the version of the NWO that is being fought for right now under our noses. So today we're going to dive back into a whole lot of notes, and let me just say this before we get started. If you have not seen part 1, then you're going to want to go ahead and click up on the video in the eye or down in the description box to go check out part 1, because part 1 is really going to lay that full foundation for you on what even is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World versus something like George Orwell's 1984. And you do need that information in order to kind of comprehend what we're going to talk about today, because we're above that part of the conversation. So with that said, let's dive in. I've got a lot of notes here. Get your pen and paper ready. So we are going to be talking about the rise of AI, transhumanism, and the technocratic New World Order. And in part 1, I laid the foundation for you on what Aldous Huxley's Brave New World was, that it wasn't some dystopian novel. It's actually a blueprint for the technocratic New World Order that we are seeing play out right in front of us right now. And in part 2, I want to show you how that blueprint is being actively built right in front of you, not just by the elites that we expect to be involved, but by the people that we never thought possible to be involved in something like this. And I personally believe that Donald Trump and this administration is not the resistance to the New World Order, but actually he and his administration and the people he is putting into places of power are necessary players making sure that it happens. Now, I know that that's not a popular opinion, and I know that that is not hard to hear. Believe me when I say that when somebody said that to me once, I've been where you are. If you have a cognitive dissonance moment or you don't want to accept that, I get it. I've been there. I understand. But what I'm asking you to do is to stay with this video, be a Berean, and see if anything that I am giving you has truth or merit. I don't want you to take my word for it. I do want you to investigate it for yourself, okay? This video is going to break down how Trump's role in 2016, 2020, and in the election of 2024 and coming forward now in 2025 is directly tied to the advancement of the Huxleyan control system. And the last thing that I want to say before we actually start diving into the meat and potatoes of this, part of the conversation that I feel like is irrelevant now is whether or not he is a winning party or an unwitting party. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter anymore. What matters most is that you understand this agenda and how it is moving forward with the people in places of power now. Doesn't matter what they know, how they got there, all of that. It's just not going to change. We are marching forward into that system, whether we like it or not. And I don't believe that we are going to experience some type of reprieve like a lot of people think. What we're seeing is what I'm going to line out in this video for you today. So before we get into how everything today is shaping up to be a brave new world type system that we are running with to get to the new world order, we actually need to go back a few years. And I want to take you back to 2016 and why I personally believe that Trump had to be the selection that year. Now, the first thing you should know is I believe in something called the left-right paradigm. And that's known to me and many others in this space who are talking about this as the illusion of choice. So before I can even get into 2016, Hillary Clinton, 2020, and 2024 and all of that, I want to set the stage for you. I do not believe that we, the people, decide the fate of our elections. This is not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of evidence that I have spent a lot of time researching for myself. I believe that these outcomes are long predetermined, long decided, and this left-right paradigm that we see is carefully crafted to make you believe that you have a say. And this is why you're going to hear people say things like, for me, my two favorite sodas, it's always Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb. They're different, but pretty similar. Or in some cases, some of my favorite teachers say Coke or Pepsi. So here's what I want you to think about, and this is what I want you to have in your mind this entire time that we are going through this video and the things that we're going to be talking about today. Every time a crisis happens, the solution always benefits the globalist elites, the same globalist elites, no matter which party is in power. Policies may change on the surface, but no matter who is in power, Democrat or Republican, or whatever system you have in your country, because this is how it works all over the earth, the deeper agenda keeps moving forward, election cycle after election cycle after election cycle. And what that is doing is marching the earth to a system with one man, one religion, one currency, and one government control. Now, this is known as the Hegelian dialectic in action, and I've talked about this on a lot of my videos. If you were here on this channel around election season, then you know that. We've talked extensively about this with many guests that I've had on and many videos that I have done. But essentially, if you don't know what the Hegelian dialectic is, I'm just going to break it down for you very quickly. So in action, what it looks like is they control the thesis, which is the problem that they give us. Then you have the antithesis, which is the public reaction, the cry for help, the come and save us. And then you have the synthesis, which is your pre-planned solution. And that's always how this works. So when you see things happening in our world today, I want you to look at it through that lens and see if you can figure out what is really going on versus the narrative that is on that horizontal plane that the media, the pundits, and all of these outlets are telling you to follow. Now, one of my favorite quotes, and I feel like it's going to be really pertinent for this video, is this one. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance. So here's what I want to say. If you refuse to look deeper, don't rush into the comments to condemn me for where I'm at. You're going to look really foolish and you will be wasting your time. I want you to be a Beran, do your own research. Don't take my word for it. All of the information that I'll present here today, the things that I'll talk about today are all out there for you to check for yourself. One of my absolute favorite resources is the set of books by Dr. J.B. Hickson, who I have had on this channel many times. JB is a pastor. He has an incredible podcast, an incredible ministry with Not by Works. But these books I have talked about for a very long time. Spirit of the Antichrist, Volume 1, Volume 2, and Spirit of the False Prophet. I've got them linked down below. These books were life-changing for me, and they confirmed all of the things that I was learning in the secular lens, like looking at it through a secular lens, like trying to figure out, is this right? Is this the truth? And JB helped me to put all of those puzzle pieces together biblically with that foundation. So those books are absolute must reads if this is brand new information for you, or honestly, if this is just even hard for you to hear and accept. I get it. I've been where you are. Check out those books. And then the other source that I have is a couple of videos down there for you on a podcast called Minute to Midnight. Absolutely love some of the guests that Tony has on. And so I linked some of my favorite episodes of his podcast that actually deal with this very topic. That will be really enlightening for you, for people who also have spent a lot of time researching this very topic and are speaking out against it as well. Now, back to 2016 and why I said that Trump had to be the selection for 2016. So here's what I want you to think about. Now, this is not my original thought. And when it was first presented, I really had to step back and go, wow, because I was really putting all of the pieces together when I was looking at everything that had gone on from 2020 on forward. So here are some of the things that I want you to think about. Had Hillary Clinton been the person that took the presidency in 2016? I want you to think about fast forwarding all the way up to the end to the beginning of 2020 when all of the scamdemic happened, right? So here's the things that I want to point out. If Hillary Clinton had won in 2016, do you personally believe that any conservative, patriot, or Christian would have complied with government tyranny in 2020? I personally don't. Do you believe that churches would have shut down because Hillary said to do so? Because Hillary got up to the podium and said, we need 2 weeks to slow the curve. Do you really think that the mass amount of churches that we have here in America would have closed their doors? I don't. There would have been a few. You got some churches out there that got some liberal belief systems and, they are all for the Democratic Party. But when you look at the church collectively as a whole, I don't think they would have listened to Hillary Clinton standing up at the podium telling them to shut down their churches. I personally don't believe that Christians would have complied to that, or at least most. Again, you're going to have some Christians who, lean on liberal politics that don't align with the Bible at all, but whatever. Those people would have complied no matter who was in office, right? But you, for the majority of Christians in this country, you would have not seen them comply. And even for people that were not Christians at all, if someone was a gun-loving, small government American, I don't think that they would have tolerated lockdowns or the destruction of personal freedoms if Hillary Clinton would have been the person at the podium in, March of 2020, telling us we got to start shutting businesses down. I just don't think that would have been the case. Well, hey, real quick announcement for you before you get back to the rest of the content you are watching. If you are somebody who is loving everything that I am doing on this channel, I have an ask of you today. Now, the first ask is something that every single person who is involved in this ministry and this community of people can do, and that is to pray. And I have some very specific things that I want you to be lifting up to the Lord. The first is simply that you would ask that the Lord would continue to help get this message of this channel out to those who need it. He is sending all kinds of people to this channel, and it is amazing. And I want to continue to thank him for his favor and just ask him to continue to bless this channel by getting the message out, since y'all all know that we have a very short amount of time to help get people to understand what is going on. And the second prayer would be that you guys would continue to thank the Lord for the ways that he is restoring the business that Lance and I have had. As most of you guys know, I have a job outside of the house because I had to get a job outside of what we've been business owners for so long, but I had to over this last year because we just were not making it. The problem is that now the Lord is impressing upon my heart to go full-time in this ministry, and I can't do that because it's still requiring my income in order for us to make it. So I am just going to ask you guys that you would continue to thank the Lord for restoration. He is doing some amazing things in that business, but until that business is making what it was before the economic downturn, I'm going to have to continue working, and that means my time is going to continue to be divided. I'm going to continue to be very limited on what I can do, and that's really frustrating for me because I have so many things that the Lord has put on my heart to get out to you guys, and not just videos and content, but downloads and things of that nature, and I can't do any of it right now. So if you could continue to just lift that up and thank the Lord for the restoration that he is doing, that would be so awesome. And the last thing is, if you are somebody who is considering partnering with a ministry, I would ask that you would prayerfully consider certainty for uncertain times. I think it's no secret to anybody that anybody who is a content creator on these platforms, we incur costs. And most of us don't have big, bad budgets, right, in our families to be able to do this stuff. And so it is through the help of people who are involved in our channel supporting us. And what I would simply say is that don't think that $5 or $10 can't go a long way. I have somebody who faithfully donates $10 a month to my channel, and she every single month, and she actually pays for nearly all of the costs that I incur each month just to be able to live stream. So if you are somebody who is prayerfully considering something like that and you're looking for a place for that to go and you love what I'm doing here, I would love it for it to be me, but make sure first that you are giving to your local church. That's where your 10th needs to go. But above and beyond that, if you're looking for another place to sow a seed, if you will, I would ask that you would consider this one. And thank you to everybody who has donated to this channel so far, and thank you to every single person who comments on videos, who likes videos, who shares videos, and who is involved in this community. You guys are the reason that it is growing the way that it is. And I'm super excited about what the Lord is going to do. All right, back to your video. And so what I'm presenting to you is because the globalists know that. They know the majority of Americans here, no matter what the media tells you, no matter what the pundits tell you, the majority of this country has a value system that is not aligned with left-wing progressive politics, right? It's more moderate to right. That's where we are. People that honor the Constitution, that just want to be left alone. They want small government. Let me live my life. That's the majority of people that we have here in the United States. Well, these global leaders that want this one world government, that are rushing towards the Antichrist system, and I think they know who their allegiance is to, they know that too. They're not dumb. We need to stop acting like they are. They're very smart. So what did they do? Well, they knew that if they selected Trump, they would have someone that conservatives, patriots, and Christians would trust to sit in that Oval Office when the time came to start shutting down the country for the scamdemic of 2020. And here's the deal. That scamdemic required compliance from those who would have resisted it under a Clinton presidency. I can tell you right now, I remember what it was like when that whole let's close down everything, 2 weeks to slow the spread. I was protesting that. Lance was protesting that. We were upset at our gym. We were upset at we lived in Florida at the time. Our complex closed down the pool. We couldn't go to the beaches. We were mad. I mean, absolutely mad. The odd thing is that I don't want to speak for Lance. I'll just speak for myself. I was struggling, like internally, my brain was kind of like short circuiting on why Trump was doing this. But at the same time, I didn't have enough wherewithal to question Trump at that time. Now, it didn't take long to figure out, hey, something's not right here, but we still weren't in that space with Trump. But the point that I'm making here is that we resisted it the entire time, but it did come a lot easier for us to accept pieces of that because of who was in power. Had it been Hillary Clinton, I would have been railing a lot harder than I was back then. So I want you to remember all of this and thinking about 2020 and why it had to be Trump in power in 2020 versus Hillary Clinton as we get into what we're going to talk about in the year past, right? And what's been going on since. So the next piece of this that I want to dive into here with you is going to be the psychological manipulation of trust. I personally believe that Trump's role is to be the outsider. He's to look like the outsider. He gets us. He's a man of the people. He's all these things that people refer to him as. So that when the crisis hit, right, people believed his decisions at that time in 2020 were good for America. And here's some key examples that I want you to think about. And again, you have to decide for yourself. Did this happen or did it not? Can I verify this? Can I not? Trump shut down churches, not the left. Is that true or false? Trump promoted the medical experiment. He made it acceptable for millions who never would have taken it under a leftist president. I don't think that had this been Hillary, people would have lined up to just in lockstep to go get something. I know a lot of people personally, I've talked about this, who went out and got the medical experiment all because of Trump pushing it. Trump enabled the financial collapse of small business, paving the way for corporate takeovers. This is what happened in 2020. Remember back. Trump normalized the largest wealth transfer in history, and the middle class lost everything, while the billionaires gained trillions through that time. So again, you guys have to think about this just as I have had to sit and wrestle with this internally as well. Had this been Hillary, would those of us who were on the other side have just willingly done everything that we were pushed to do back in this time frame? I don't think so. So now let's move on to why Biden and Harris had to be the bad cop for the next administration to come in. But before we get into the role of the last 4 years, which were awful, I do want to take you back to election night in 2020. Now again, same time, election night 2020. At this point in my life, I had not figured out everything that I'm discussing with you today. I just want to tell you, I was so excited to go out and vote for Trump. I was wearing the t-shirts, flying the flags, honking my horn at everybody on the road as I seen the flags flying, and everybody had their stuff on, like yelling at people on the sides of the roads, like Trump, 2020, and just being like, those are my people. Like I wanted to go to one of the rallies, we just weren't near one. And the one that was in our area was just massively packed. There was just no way we could get there. But that's where I was. I was doing everything in my power that I could to support him, including having conversations with people who were choosing not to vote at all because they saw the system for what it truly is. And I was trying to get to change their minds to go out and vote. But let's be real. I want you to think about that night. And we got to be careful how we talk about it. So we'll have to keep it we'll have to keep it kind of code here, right? So, but let's be real. So what happened that night was insane. Y'all remember the counting stopped at 10:30 and a shift took place, a big one. No matter where you stand, everybody remembers how bizarre it was to go back to the details of that night. And let's also just think back to this. Trump was holding rallies with like 30, 40, 50, 60,000 people showing up, packing stadiums, packing farm fields, just massive enthusiasm for him to be reelected. Meanwhile, Biden couldn't get 6 to 50 people to attend anything. They had everybody in their little chairs, 6 feet apart with their little masks on. That's what they had. And it was honestly laughable. I just remember thinking, there ain't no way this dude can win nothing this year. This dude, the turnout for this dude is going to be so low. It's going to feel so good the next day to rub it in everybody's faces. That's where I was at. And do y'all remember that Biden even refused to debate Trump? Do y'all remember that his team put a lid on him every single day to keep him out of the public because he was such a hot mess and everybody knew it? They wanted to keep as little embarrassment as possible. Well, here's the thing. This was all by design. Now, I couldn't see it then, but I surely see it now. And that night, the 2020 election, when all of that happened and the coming days, what you have to know about that is that it had to be so over the top ridiculous, so blatantly questionable that people were absolutely outraged. And we were. We absolutely were. Now, again, we can't use certain terms or bring up certain things, but we all saw what happened, right? It had to look like the most unbelievable upset in modern history. It had to look like 81 million people went out to cast their vote for Flashbang, as some have called him, and I think that's hilarious. And then what happened? So we get all these results back and we're going, something ain't right. There's questioning going on. Everybody who's questioning it is getting censored. There's all this stuff going on. Well, there were endless investigations. There were promises that things would be corrected. There was talk of election reform. There was talk of audits, proof, but it was all theater. Nothing ever changed. Why? Because it was never supposed to. The outrage was the goal, and they needed to break people down to set up the next phase of the agenda. And that's what we're seeing now. And that agenda was Biden back then because it had to be the dumpster fire that it was for the last 4 years so that we could get to where we are now. So with all that said, let's talk about the role of the last 4 years and why Biden had to be such a disaster for us and the country as a whole. Biden's incompetence was not by accident at all. And in fact, I believe that he was so engineered to be so bad that this is one of the reasons that even lifelong liberals and moderates were just itching to get to the polls in 2024 to reelect Donald Trump. And what's wild to me is watching things from this year, people who I'm talking like hated Trump in 2020, hated Trump for even before that. Even his vice president ran to vote for him in 2024. And I believe that this was all by design. The last 4 years have been so scripted to create this climate where people beg for strong leadership. They beg for stability. They beg for security. That's what they wanted. And so I want you to stop and think about how bad were the last 4 years for you, right? I know how they were for us. It was awful. It was awful. And the thing is that it had to be that way because you guys know this. You've heard this term I'm getting ready to give you. But it had to be that way because you have to break people down before you can rebuild a society. Most of you guys will know this term as build back better. Where have we heard that before? Well, the World Economic Forum. Yep. That was also the Biden Harris campaign slogan. Yep, they got that from the World Economic Forum. Yep, that's what it was. It was a build back better. And here's where this starts to tie into Huxley. Huxley's vision requires people to willingly embrace their enslavement. So here's what the last 4 years were for. They were to destroy the economy to make people desperate, to crush the middle class so that they accept a government-controlled solution, increase social chaos to make people cry out for law and order, push people to embrace surveillance, AI, digital governance as that solution to lawlessness. And then you have Trump coming back into play in 2024. He's the good cop to Biden's bad cop. And now people are running back to Trump thinking that he's going to fix everything. But the real agenda is still moving forward. It's just with different branding. Well, hey, let's get real honest. The world is a hot mess. Economically, these have been the worst years that we've seen in decades. And if history tells us anything, it's that these goofballs running the show have no clue what they're doing at all. Now, like many of you guys, we have been putting away tote bins full of canned goods, dry pastas, and non-perishables. But we found that there are a few problems with that. A, we have no clue how long that food will actually last before it turns into some failed science experiment. And B, the stuff that does last is loaded with preservatives and chemicals that we normally wouldn't eat. And C, where we're getting these products is only making the same evil corporations richer. And y'all, ain't nobody want to be doing that. God really began burdening our hearts to prepare beyond just leaving behind a rapture kit and every single magazine of prophecy watchers that we had. We wanted to make sure that whoever finds our home after the rapture has everything, not just food and water, but supplies for babies and pets and everyday survival. But we also realized something else. What if we're here longer than we expect to be? What if food shortages start before we actually do? Boom and zoom. We didn't want to be caught unprepared. So after doing it the wrong way for the last several years, we finally found an actual solution that helps us prepare for two things. First, to leave behind supplies for those left behind after the rapture, and second, to make sure that we're covered if we do see some sort of economic disaster here. This is also a way for us to have food storage that lasts 25 years, avoids disgusting preservatives, and gives us real meals like biscuits and gravy, orange chicken, beef stroganoff, and coffee, because, you know, priorities. But the best part, we don't have to guess if it's still going to be good in 10 years. That solution, my Patriot Supply. And I know what you're thinking. Lauren, food that lasts 25 years, I'm pretty sure it's probably going to taste like MREs. But no, this isn't some cardboard flavored chalky survival ration situation. This stuff actually tastes good, which is important if you're trying to survive anything from a blackout to, I don't know, total chaos. So here's how easy it is. Just click the link below in the description box and you're going to find a ton of options to suit whatever your prepping needs are. Step one would be to browse through everything from generators to survival gear to water filtration and heirloom seeds. Step two, go ahead and check out their 4-week emergency food kits or even your 3, 6, and 12-month supply if you're serious about having a stockpile. Step 3, pick what works best for your budget and needs. And then step 4, get it shipped to your front door. That's exactly how easy they make it for you. Now, back to your video. So now let's talk about why it had to be Trump to return in 2024. Well, as I've mentioned, it was really never about elections. It's always been about control. Trump had to return so that the same agenda could continue, but it has to be with different branding. What exactly changes under Trump? Nothing, except for the names of certain things. And we're starting to see some of that take place, and then there are still people that are still not quite seeing it. Hopefully videos like this and others that are being produced are helping. But what they needed, the global elites, they needed a face that people would trust to complete the technocratic transition. And so what I'm postulating in this video, that this was always the design. I think that they knew no one on this earth would submit to some sort of totalitarian control and that we would have willingly embraced that. So I believe that that's why 2020 happened across the whole earth. It was like a test run to see if they could get it done that way. And because there was such a massive pushback to that entire agenda, to all the people involved, they really had to make sure that, you know, when they did the flip, right, to the other side of it, that was going to work. And so I'm sure there were people out there that probably thought we might be able to take them all down in 2020, because I think the agenda originally was Agenda 21 and then they backed it to 2030. But it almost seems like now this might have been the agenda all along. And that's what I'm starting to think it might have been. Now, I want to say that I have not believed this for a long time. Like, I haven't been in this place for a long time. And in fact, I have to give a lot of credit to my husband, because he kept telling me when we were fighting about all this stuff, and I say fighting loosely, right? But we would have these, you know, heated discussions. And he just kept telling me, babe, I'm telling you, all this stuff is going to come out through a version of, what would be a light world order. It's going to be something that people are going to willingly accept. Things are going to look good on the surface. They're going to get good again in certain areas. It's all leading to the same outcome. We might see, certain pieces of our life go back to a really good ideal that we had prior to some of this stuff. And I was like, no, absolutely not. It can't be that way. Revelation says this, da, 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 da. And I was so like hell-bent that it had to look like the evil versions of the Klaus Schwabs, Yuval Noah Harari, and some of the other crazies involved with the World Economic Forum. And those guys are still involved. They're just not your frontmen anymore. But in saying that, it took me a while, but I finally got here and got to the place where I could admit, dang it, man, Lance was right again. And he was right about it coming in from this realm of, what we like to term as like the light world order versus the dark world order. We're seeing what we call, or not what we've called, but what the occult has called a changing of the guard. And so it goes from the dark side fighting now that they're not winning. So now they give the light side a turn to try to take over the world. And that's what's happening now. So Elon Musk is Trump's right-hand man, and he is now openly discussing AI governance, the need for control, and digital surveillance. And that to me is more proof that this next phase of a brave new world system is already here. And the other thing that is so weird to me, Trump and Elon remind me so much of Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari. Like Elon is like the guy in Trump's ear whispering all the secrets, like, let's do this. And he's out on the world stage. That Yuval is on the world stage, but, not the same way as Elon is. Elon's everywhere. It's almost like Elon's the vice president versus JD Vance. But anyway, and then you have Yuval, who is Klaus's right-hand man. Like everything that Klaus Schwab is putting out there, he gets from Yuval. And that is what's so wild to me. It's like the same thing. You got this is your dark side and this is your light side, right? So let's talk a little bit about Trump's 2024 agenda and how this is kind of the same system, but it's under a different brand. So let's get into AI transhumanism and the acceleration of it. So as I just mentioned, Elon Musk is now pushing AI-driven governance and transhumanist integration at major summits. Now, I want to play a clip for you guys from Elon Musk. This was taken from the World Government Summit just a few weeks ago, whenever that was, January, end of January, 1st of February. And I want you guys to hear what he's talking about. So let's check this out.
I don't know. I think we might be headed to a bimodal human intelligence distribution, where there's a small number. It's kind of maybe like more like Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, where you've got sort of a small group of very smart humans, but then maybe the average intelligence drifts lower over time, potentially. Because we have a sort of mating, in the last few decades or several decades that did not exist before. So, but human intelligence, I think, will be dwarfed by machine intelligence. I'm not sure how to feel about that, except that it'll be inevitable. That at some point, human intelligence will be a very small fraction of total intelligence. Digital intelligence will be more than 99% of all intelligence.
Did you hear that? First of all, he said, oh, this is more like, Brave New World, think Aldous Huxley, and that digital intelligence will make up 99% of the intelligence. This is wild.
Future. So hopefully the computers are nice to us. But I think...
Wishful thinking.
I hope so. I think it matters like how we bring up AI, because you can think of AI like a super genius child. But it still matters even if you have a super genius child. Like, what sort of values do you instill in that child? What do you say to teach them? How do you, as a child's growing up, what values do you teach the child? And something that I think is extremely important is to be maximally truth-seeking.
My question is, what's his version of truth?
And I think that's what's the most important thing for AI safety? I think it's to be maximally truth-seeking. And I think also curiosity is important. And I think if it's curious and truth-seeking, it will foster humanity.
So there you go. And here's the thing. Musk is the tech visionary that Trump has aligned with to push this system under an entirely different name, but it's the same exact system, the same exact ideas. All of it is the same that was going on back in 2020 with the World Economic Forum. It hasn't changed. And what I think a lot of people have to get in their minds is that America First branding does not mean freedom. It really means AI-driven, digital-controlled, free package for conservatives and Christians to accept. And that's where the issue is. He's selling AI, he's selling automation, he's selling human AI integration as necessary for the future of civilization, and that it's necessary for us to evolve to a higher level of consciousness. This is what he is selling. And Trump is aligning with Musk, giving him a whole lot of power to do a lot of things. It's so weird too, because he's just a citizen. He's not involved in anything government-wise. He's just, I don't know. It's very weird to me. And he's got a lot of power over, critical infrastructures. And then he's got, Twitter, well, it's not Twitter anymore, X, SpaceX, Neuralink, and all these AI projects. So Musk is this techno-libertarian on the surface, but he's actually a full-fledged technocrat behind the scenes. And then you have guys like Sam Altman, who is OpenAI, WorldCoin. They're building a global biometric ID system, and Trump supports them as well. So these are things that we as believers, especially guys, if you are watching everything from a prophetic lens, you can't turn a blind eye to this. You can't put your head in the sand and not want to see this. The point that many of us are trying to make, it's not to rag on Trump, right? I mean, I've mentioned many times that there are certain things right now that when I take off all my hats that I wear, the most important ones to me that I wear, and I just put on my conservative patriot hat, if I just have that one on, there's a lot of things on the surface look great and they're exciting to see. But where this is all going is what we have to focus on. So now let's talk a little bit about big pharma and digital health expansion. So the big thing for me is that Trump is still really proud of his role with Operation Warp Speed. And he continues to push for the mRNA technology. We'll talk about Project Stargate in a bit. We'll get to that. But not just that, he still refers to himself as the father of the wacky tacky, and he still encourages people to go and get the medical experiment that was put into place so very fast, weirdly. Back in was 2021 into 2020. And then, of course, he's appointed big pharma advocates into key government positions. One of them is Susie Wiles. Go look her up. Go see who she's connected to and who she's tied to. And then you have Project Stargate, which we briefly just mentioned, but let's actually get into a little of those details. It is an AI-enhanced health tracking and cancer prevention. Now, I want to mention before I get into Stargate, when I was kind of putting this together, I was thinking about a few things even way back when. So my parents have owned a medical transcription company for a lot of years. I can't remember when they started it, long time ago. But I remember, I believe it was back in 2008. I know it was under Barack Obama, right? Or Obama, as a lot of us call him. But my parents were getting really just frustrated and leery whenever everything started going to digital records. And we had to abide by all these different rules. And so if you don't know what medical transcription is, when you go to the doctor, your doctor writes a report on you and they can hire a company to, transcribe those records, which is pretty standard, pretty normal. So it goes in your patient chart. Well, when everything went to electronic medical records, everything started getting uploaded to these databases. And now, if you go to the doctor in the state of Texas, you can go to the doctor in Oregon and they can pull up your medical records pretty fast because of EMR. And so I remember that was a paving right there of where we're at now. That, you know what I'm saying? So this is why you have to really think about how far back do all these agendas tie. I can promise you there's a link. So anyway, so let's talk about Project Stargate. So it launched, this was so wild, you guys. I remember a day after inauguration, holy moly, the next day, January 21, the day after his inauguration, President Donald Trump announces the initiation of Project Stargate, which is a monumental $500 billion with a B, investment aimed at revolutionizing artificial intelligence infrastructure in the United States by producing a ton of data centers. And this is what got me. Trump wants to use emergency declarations in orders to get it done. What? Yes, you can go and watch his speech at the World Economic Forum on this from a few weeks ago. I watched the whole thing live, and I was blown away at how many times he was talking about using emergency orders to get these data centers built. What's the rush, bro? What's the rush? But it was literally astounding to me. Why do we need emergency measures? That's a critical thinking question that we need to be asking and trying to figure out the answer to that. Now, my thing I'm thinking is, well, maybe it's because the end goal of 2030 is still on paper for them, right? So at any rate, some of the collaborators that are going to be involved with this project are major tech companies, including OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank, with the goal of positioning the US at the forefront of AI advancements. Now, I have heard a lot of people say that, hey, I'm not for this, but we have to look at it this way where America has to get there first before these other nations, because if China gets there first or one of these other countries, Russia gets there first, then it could get really scary for us as America. Okay, maybe, but I don't buy that. I don't buy that. Every nation is working towards this. So for me, it's just another excuse for Trump to go forward on this and to give the nod for him to pursue this if we make that kind of argument as an excuse, right? Because the point is that every nation they're all working towards the same end goal, which is the beast system. So let's talk about the AI integration in healthcare. Now, a primary focus of Project Stargate is going to be to harness AI's capabilities to enhance healthcare outcomes. And this is going to include early disease detection, where they claim that they can use algorithms to analyze extensive medical data sets, which would facilitate some kind of early detection for you in a disease such as cancer. And then this was the one that really is interesting to me, but personalized medicine. So they're going to leverage AI to develop a tailored treatment plan that would be based on your individual genetic profile, thereby improving patient outcomes. Now, I have some serious concerns about some of this stuff, right? So let's talk about a few of those. Cancer prevention versus the implications on taking any of these experiments, jabs, whatever you want to call them. So while Project Stargate is going to make its aim to advance cancer prevention and treatment, I think what we have to do is actually acknowledge the concerns regarding the previous medical interventions that were there. So if we go back, we rewind the tape a little bit, back to 2020, 2021, that medical experiment absolutely deployed massive amounts of increase to cancer rates. You go look at the data for yourself, but it's there. And so it raises the question for me about how in the world they're coming out with something now to somehow reduce the rates of cancer, reduce cancer. Cancer's at an all-time high since all of this medical experiment stuff started back a couple years ago. And now they need something to counteract that when that very thing caused the increase. I don't know. Call me crazy. That's fine if you want to. So let's also talk about the significance of the name Stargate. And I've talked about this a little bit in some other videos very briefly, but I want to give you a little bit more of an extensive overview of that. So the word Stargate actually means portal. It is in various esoteric and occult traditions, a Stargate symbolizes a portal or a gateway to other dimensions or realms. And the choice of this name for this project, definitely to me tells me that they know something. Like, I don't believe that was by accident. I think there was a deliberate alignment with themes of, transformation and crossing thresholds to be into some new domain of existence. And I think that's what it's about. Again, call me crazy. You can, that's fine. But I think that that's really what it's about. And the other thing that was interesting, and a couple people pointed this out to me in a different video after I had talked a little bit about Project Stargate. And I knew this, but had kind of just forgotten about it. So for this video, I went back just to pull a little bit of information. But the CIA had an original Stargate project. And let's talk a little bit about that. So the original Stargate project was a classified U.S. Army unit established in 1977, operating until its termination in 1995. The objective in the program was aimed to investigate the potential of psychic phenomena, particularly remote viewing, as tools for intelligence gathering during the Cold War era. Okay, so then it goes down into some of these key aspects. So remote viewing was participants often referred to as psychic spies attempted to perceive and describe distant locations or events without physical access, relying solely on their purported psychic abilities. The outcomes, despite some reported successes, the program faced criticism due to inconsistent results and lack of scientific validation. It was ultimately deemed ineffective for intelligence purposes and was declassified following its termination. So regardless, it's still very interesting. And then here's the media coverage piece of this. It says this project existence and details became widely known through the declassified documents and media reports, highlighting the government's exploration into unconventional intelligence methods. Now, what I want to say is that if we understand the layers of Project Stargate, from its contemporary AI-driven healthcare initiative to the historical and symbolic differences of its name, I think we can grasp that there might be something multifaceted for these narratives and the implications surrounding what they're doing with this endeavor. And I think the fusion of digital IDs, AI healthcare, and medical mandates will be normalized. And that's going to be a huge goal that will tie in beautifully to the beast system and has to run the entire world with the people left here. So now let's get into digital surveillance and the rise of AI governance. So you've got Musk, Altman, and plenty of others that are building AI surveillance tools that Trump will present as a solution to lawlessness. Now, AI-driven policing, predictive crime measures, and biometric tracking are going to expand under the guise of national security. And this, again, comes right back down to the Hegelian dialectic, the real agenda, problem, reaction, solution. So here's what I want you to think about. Again, this is where we have to put on our critical thinking hats, okay? Under Biden, what happened? The floodgates were opened at the border. Millions of illegal immigrants entered our country. They were unvetted. There was zero accountability. Nobody in the government seemed to be worried about getting them out of here. Nobody cared. We were giving money to everybody. It was insane. We still have no clue who is over here. Then you have terrorism threats skyrocketing, crimes increase. Think about all the things that were happening, right? I'm not going to get into all the specifics, but you guys can remember some of the stuff that was going on with animals being eaten, just crazy stuff, right? So then you had the border states being overwhelmed. Now, that is your thesis. It's your manufactured crisis. Now under Trump, that pendulum, it's going to swing hard the other way, right? So the same people who let those people in now are going to claim, you know what we need? A massive crackdown to protect national security. That's the antithesis. That's the reaction. And the solution they're going to roll out, you got it. If you guessed it, biometric tracking. AI-powered surveillance and digital ID. So this is going to be facial recognition at the borders. You've got the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They're going to use predictive policing algorithms to track and monitor individuals. All immigrants, visitors, and eventually citizens are going to be required to have some kind of biometric verification for travel, work, financial transactions. And you guys, this is where it is. It's the synthesis. So that's the real goal. It's full spectrum surveillance. And people are supporting it right now. Why? Because we have a legit problem at the border. But again, if they create that problem and they know the end goal is always about surveillance for everybody, let's create that problem. Then you get the people pretty teed off about everything that's going on. They want a solution. Now we got it. We'll crack down on the borders, but we're going to use all this technology now in its place to make sure that everybody stays in lockstep and has their marching orders. And this is the formula that they always use to push any agenda that they're after. So I'll say it again. They're going to create the problem, mass illegal entry, rising crime caused by them, trigger the public reaction. We need a strong border. And we do. And then they're going to implement the pre-planned solution, which is a total surveillance state. And again, that plays right into the beast system. And what people think is just about getting our borders back is actually going to expand into nationwide tracking for every single person in this country. And it's going to get scary because once that's implemented, that system is not going to be for illegal immigrants. It's going to be for you and me. Did I do that right? You and me. That's what it's going to be. So every system or every citizen will be under AI monitoring in the name of security. And my point is they're not restoring America. They're actually locking it down under the brave new world system that Aldous Huxley talked about so long ago. And it honestly reminds me of the Patriot Act that George W. was a part of back when 9/11 happened. And all of us know what a disaster the Patriot Act was. It was an erosion of our freedoms. And the crazy thing is, I was young. I wasn't even old enough to vote, but I was for it. I paid attention to politics. I have my entire life. I was for it. But you know what's funny? None of that makes any sense if you're a conservative, to be for some form of bigger government where you can be hacked and tracked and all the things. And I was, because I didn't know any better. So the point is that this is why we have to pay attention to this stuff, because we have to see, like, well, what is this really talking about? What freedoms is this going to erode? How does this change? Does this violate our Constitution? And nobody seems to be asking those questions, and they're really important. And I think maybe, and I could be wrong here, but some of the reason why we're not asking those questions is because technology is happening so fast, we can't even keep up with it. it. So it's hard to even know, like, our Constitution says this, but how does that violate? Because this technology does this, and I don't even know how this is relevant. And that's part of it. The part of the illusion here is to keep us so disoriented that we can't even figure out how fast and what rights we have from our Constitution are being eroded. So the thing I want to mention is that I really believe that Trump is going to sell AI as pro-America, even though it's going to erode privacy and autonomy. And then you have, of course, we've talked a little bit about this, I've mentioned it, but your central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. And yes, I know Trump has outlawed those, but don't forget, he is crypto ready. Like, that's where it's going. So at the end of the day, that is still digital currency, guys. It's still going to be controlled through blockchain. It's still going to have all of those elements involved. Tracking. Track. No more cash, right? And so it's going to be an AI controlled financial system that will move forward. And it possibly could be under some kind of branding as like economic reform. We have no idea, but that's what we need to pay attention to. And here's the thing that I really want to mention. The whole goal of the NWO right now, the version that's leading this, is to rebuild trust. Rebuild trust. And they have to do it through a nationalist lens. Okay? And that's what they're doing. And you have so many people that are supporting all this stuff without really putting their critical thinking hat on, going, what does this look like 2 years from now? What does this look like 5 years from now? Hashtag if we're still here. But my point is that they have to rebuild trust and get everybody who loves this dude at the podium to back him and to be behind all this stuff, because then there's no questioning. Now, the other thing that I want you to remember in this rebuilding trust, if you paid attention to the last, was it a summit basically from the World Economic Forum? Not this past one, but the previous one. Again, time is relative, so I can't remember when it was, but in 2024. What was their entire marketing strategy? We have to rebuild trust. Nobody trusts us anymore. No, we don't. We sure don't. So what they have to do is they have to put people in front of you that you already like, that look like they support the things that you do, that you will back. And that's what they've done. So my point is, the same policies of global control will now have a patriotic name. Conservatives, libertarians, and moderates who resisted these policies under Biden will now embrace them because DJT is standing at the podium telling you how good they are and how we're going to make America great again. That's what they're doing. It's the illusion of this populist revolution that will somehow make people more willing to accept technocratic control, and that's always been the goal. AI, mass surveillance, and global data integration will continue just with an America First branding. So what does this mean prophetically? What does it mean for those of us who are listening for that shofar to blow, waiting for Jesus to say, y'all come on up? I hope that's how he says it too, but he probably won't. What does that mean? Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Revelation 13 warns of a world where government and technology merge to control people. Does it? Is that what we're seeing? I think so. Daniel 2 describes this last kingdom as a mix of iron and clay, technology merging with humanity. And we know that a lot of this tech has come from fallen angels. And we've talked a lot about that on this channel, how we're seeing all the hybrids, merging man and machine, how we're seeing all this come to play. Y'all, Daniel 2:43, go read it. Go read it. And here's what I want to say. Many people are already saying it, but we all know Trump isn't the savior. We also know he's not the Antichrist. So don't come at me in the comments saying that either. I didn't say that. I don't feel that way. It doesn't even fit the profile. But I do believe he is the necessary transition into a digital beast system. And the digital piece of the beast system has to be in play. Because you have to think about, yes, a lot of people are going to be raptured on out of here, right? You know, I know that what's-her-face, who apparently wrote about this, Barbara Marciniak, the New Age gal, you know, if at some point 20 million people disappear, well, what if it is 20 million Christians? We still got a lot more people left on the earth right now. Now, some of the side effects coming in from some of these other things that have gone on might change some of that, but that's a whole nother topic that we ain't got time to go into today. But my point is that the reason why this digital system has to be in place is because regardless of how many people are taken off the earth in the rapture, there's going to be a lot of people left behind. And the whole world is going to be controlled by one guy in one system. Well, how is he going to do that? Like, that's honestly, you can see why people thought this whole idea of taking Revelation literally was insane years ago, because the technology wasn't here for it. But it sure is now. So here's the thing. The deception of making you believe that Trump is fighting the globalists when he's actually implementing their plans is the goal. That is the deception. And this is why we have to be aware of that, because my biggest thing right now is I feel like people are looking for, when they're looking for deception, they're looking for it to only come from the dark side, for it to be so obvious, for it to be, you know, if it's Satan, well, then he's got to be red and he's got to look ugly in the face and he's got to have these horns and a pitchfork and all this stuff. Well, no, the Bible actually says that he disguises himself as an angel of light. The Bible also talks about how beautiful Lucifer was. So it's like, it's insane when you kind of think about that this deception has to come from some like evil looking, has to be this way, when the deception actually is coming from the very side that so many people are supporting right now. It's merging, really, is what's happening. And as I've said many times, I actually think that it has to be this way. No one wanted to accept the New World Order from a version that looked like what Klaus and Yuval and the gang were handing out back in 2020, 2021, but they will willingly embrace it if it comes from someone that we all like, standing at the podium with different branding on the same things. And that's, I hate it, but that's what's happening right now. And I think it's also a way to kind of give us what our itching ears want to hear. And I believe that that's also in scripture somewhere, right? You know, that's scripture somewhere. And the Bible warned us about a system of false hope before total control is unleashed. And it almost seems like, too, I was talking about this with another friend of mine as we were chatting through, you know, the biblical end time scenario. But it almost seems like, you know, the Bible talks about when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. It almost seems like we do have to get into this place where everyone is like, whew, we can breathe again. Everything looks good. The sky is bluer. The sun is brighter. Like, it almost seems like we have to get to a place like that. And we can get there under this administration. And then what? Boom! Sudden destruction is going to come upon them. And I believe that the rapture is going to be that sudden destruction where people are going to go, oh no, what happened? You know? So that's just my thought on that. And so here's your final warning call to action that I have for this video. So if you still believe that Trump is a savior of America, here's what I want you to ask yourself. If he is, why does he align with the same billionaires who are pushing the New World Order? If he's against the New World Order, and if he's the savior of America, and he's wanting to do America first and all this stuff, why is he pushing AI, transhumanism, and digital governance if he's against all of that? And I just believe that the globalists don't fear him. I think that they put him there. And as I already said, this is not about left versus right. It really is about complete control under a system that you and I are being manipulated to embrace. So, with all that said, comment below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know if you've done some digging and some research and if you're kind of in the same place. And you know what? Here's the thing. If you're struggling with this, like I said, I get it. I've been here. I have absolutely been here. It is a tough place to be. Probably some of the biggest grieving I've done is realizing this country was not founded upon the things that I thought it was founded upon, for the reasons that I thought it was founded upon, all of that stuff. It's been very, very hard. I've grieved my love as an American patriot a long time ago. And those that know me from that lens are like, dang girl, you have really changed. Yes, I have. But my vision now is based on eternity. My vision now is based on the fact that I truly do believe we have a very limited time left to get out the fact that you need to know who Jesus is. And if you don't, you need to figure that out fast. And I got a video that'll pop up at the end of this video. You can go check in. You can learn everything you need to know about heaven and hell and all that stuff. But that's really the reality here, because we cannot stop the fact that I believe the Lord has an appointed time that he's already seen it all, right? He just look up there. It's all the same to him. But he has an appointed time that trumpet's going to blow, the rapture's going to happen. And then, after that, however long that gap of time is, maybe it's a week, maybe it's a year, 2 years, I don't know. But that covenant of Daniel 9:27 is going to be signed. And then that 7 years is going to unleash on who's left here. And that's my mission in pointing this out. It's not to make anybody upset. It's not to pick apart Trump, I mean, I think I've said it many times, but there's a lot of things about him that I've actually quite appreciated. But I can't deny the things that are in front of me. And I won't do that just because it might upset some people. So, with all that said, I think that'll be a wrap on this mini-series. So as I always say in every video, you know the drill by now, right? Keep your eyes on the sky and keep your ear listening for that shofar. I'll see you in the next one. Maranatha.